Okay, so when you think about owning gold, it's always like these big, grand things, right? You think about Fort Knox or like buried treasure chests. Like it's always something that feels very hard to handle,
Yeah.
hard to divide up. And you probably need a lot of money just to even start owning any.
Definitely. That's the traditional image, isn't it? But what if you could like totally bypass all of that? Imagine owning just a tiny bit of actual gold just by, a couple of taps on your phone.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's actually the super cool shift that we're going to be looking at today. We're doing a deep dive into something called GIFT, that stands for Gold International Fungible Token, and something called the Utribe wallet.
Right.
And these aren't just, some techie buzzwords. These are actually about like changing who can participate in the financial system, especially when we look at Africa.
Totally. And for you, the learner, this is a perfect example of how people are using innovation to deal with really big challenges and coming up with totally new ways of thinking about things.
Yeah.
So what we want to do today is really understand how this gift thing works. How it connects to real gold that you can hold in your hand.
Right.
And also the tech behind it. We'll keep it simple. Think of it as like digital record keeping and the like core ideas that make this whole thing tick. And those ideas are actually based on something called Ubuntu, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
And to do this deep dive, we'll be looking at two documents.
Right.
The Utribe.1, Gift Tokenomics, one from last year, and then also the white paper Ubuntu Tribe.
Awesome.
So let's start with the main player here. Gift. What exactly is this thing?
Yeah, GIFT at its heart, it's like a digital token. And remember, it stands for Gold International Fungible Token.
Right.
And the key word here is fungible.
Okay.
And all that means is that one gift token, it's like swappable for another gift token, just like, €1, you can swap it for another euro. They're the same.
Makes sense.
And this token represents that you own a little piece of real gold that you can actually hold.
Okay.
And importantly, you can like trade it in, redeem it for that actual gold.
So it's like a stand-in for the actual gold.
Exactly. And when we say backed by gold, we're talking about a direct link, like one-to-one, with physical gold, and not just any gold, like really high-quality gold, the LBMA standard, 999.5 pure.
Wow. Okay.
And what's interesting is how tiny it is. Each gift, it's just a small fraction of a gram, like 0.0001 grams. Back in August 2023, that was worth like a tiny, tiny fraction of a euro cent, like 0.056. So for you, the learner, think about it, the super small amount, less than a cent, and suddenly gold can be a way to save money for people who never even thought they could own gold before.
Right.
That's a big change, right? It's about making it accessible.
Huge change. So all of this gold, where does it come from? It's not like magic, right? Where does this gold back in these tokens come from?
Definitely not magic. It actually comes from a bunch of different places, and it shows how Utribe is trying to do things differently.
Okay.
So first, they get gold from the open market, what's called the OTC market, at the current price. And they do this through like trusted partners in the London Bullion Market Association, that's the LBMA. They set the rules for how gold is traded around the world.
Yeah, that's the usual way, right?
Right, the traditional way.
But I remember reading something about working with smaller mines, too.
Yeah, this is where things get cool. Utribe actually works directly with what are called artisanal mines, like smaller independent mines.
Okay.
And they help them out by giving them money up front to get their operations going.
Okay.
And in exchange, they can buy gold at a price that works for everyone. It creates like a win-win situation.
Yeah, like a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you also mentioned recycled gold.
Yeah, that was in the documents, too.
Exactly. They're very conscious about being sustainable. So they also use gold that's been recycled as part of their, gold supply. And they take that gold and they refine it so it meets that strict LBMA standard, those 1 kilogram bars.
Okay, so that's really interesting. You've got gold coming from these big global markets,
Right.
but then also supporting these smaller producers,
Yeah.
and then doing it in a way that's good for the environment with recycled gold.
Exactly. Covering all the bases.
So you've got all this physical gold sitting somewhere, being like the backup for all the gift tokens out there. How do we know that the number of gift tokens matches up with how much gold they actually have?
This is where that whole idea of being 100% gold-backed is super important, and it relies on some really neat technology. They're constantly checking, like auditing what they have. Independent people come in and make sure everything's right.
Okay.
And they report that to this network called Chainlink. It's like a secure digital messenger that brings real-world information onto something called the blockchain.
Got it. So it's like A record that's always updating and can't be messed with, showing how much gold there is.
Exactly, like a public record, and it can't be changed. So the gift smart contract, and that's the code that manages everything. It has rules.
Okay.
It can't just make a ton of gift tokens out of nowhere. There's a limit. The max number of gift is tied to and checked against that real gold reported on Chainlink. That's proof of reserve.
Yeah.
It's like showing proof that for every gift out there, there's at least that much real gold in a safe place.
Oh, that makes sense. But before we go too deep into proof of reserve, you said blockchain, you said smart contract. Maybe for the learner out there, can you give like a super simple explanation of what those are?
Absolutely. Imagine blockchain as like a shared digital notebook. Like everyone's got a copy. And every time something happens, like someone buys or sells GIF, it gets written down in everyone's notebook. What's cool is that once it's written, you can't change it without everyone noticing. So that makes it super safe and builds trust. Now, a smart contract, it's like a set of rules written in code that lives on this blockchain, and it does things automatically when certain things happen.
Like an agreement that just does its thing.
Exactly. No middleman needed. Now, tying this to something called real-world assets, or RWAs,
Okay.
they're like things you can hold in the real world, gold, or even, houses or oil, but they're represented on the blockchain digitally.
So gift as an RWA is basically like owning gold but digitally on that safe shared notebook.
Exactly. Each gift you got means you own a tiny bit of that real gold, all safe and sound.
Got it.
And coming back to the proof of reserve, remember Chainlink? Well, there's this company, the network firm, and they physically check the gold and tell Chainlink in real time how much there is. That constant independent check isn't just about tech security, it's about making sure people can trust the system, especially if they haven't trusted financial systems before.
Yeah, building trust is key.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's got these gift tokens and wants to use them. Where do they go? That's where this Utribe wallet comes in, right?
Right. The Utribe wallet, it's like your go-to platform to access and use your gift. It's a Web3 mobile app. And think of Web3 as like the next level of the internet where users have more control. The Utribe wallet is your personal portal to this whole gift ecosystem.
Makes sense. And how do you get gift tokens in the first place? Like, how do you buy them?
So at first, you can buy gift directly through their website, utribe.one, and through partners they have. They also said they were going to make them available on other exchanges, like regular markets, but for crypto. And even on DeFi platforms, those are like platforms for finance, but all decentralized by the third quarter of 2023. That means even more ways to get and trade gift.
Yeah, options. What about ways to pay for them? Like, what can you use to actually buy gift?
Well, they wanted to make it easy for everyone, so they had a bunch of options. Normal credit cards, stable coins like USDC and USDT, those are like crypto but tied to the US dollar. And really importantly, they partnered up so you could pay using mobile money, vouchers, even directly swapping using pools on those big exchanges like Uniswap V3 and PancakeSwap. Having all those ways to pay is key, especially in those places where normal banking isn't so common.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you're trying to reach people who haven't had easy access to financial services in the past. What if someone wants to go the other way, trade their digital gold back for actual gold? Can you do that?
Absolutely. They have a clear process to redeem gift for physical gold. You basically put in a request through their platform, then they arrange everything for delivery, transport, insurance, and then they burn your gift tokens, basically delete them so they can't be used again.
So it's all connected, real gold and digital gold, going both ways. What kinds of gold can you actually get back? Like what size bars or anything like that?
You got options there too. They have smaller bars, 10 grams, all the way to those bigger ones, 1 kilogram. It all depends on how much gift you have and want to trade in.
Flexible. But like anything else, there were probably fees involved, right? What are the fees for using gift?
Yeah, so the basic fee is 1.618% for any gift that's out there being used.
Okay.
But they made it so if you do a bigger transaction, the fee goes down, which I think encourages people to use it more. And all these fees, they're managed by a smart contract, that code on the blockchain, so everything's automatic and open.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about what gift is, how it's basically gold but digital, how you use the Utribe wallet to manage it. But at the beginning, we talked about financial inclusion in Africa. How does all of this help with that?
This is where that Ubuntu idea is really important.
Right.
The white paper talks about how many people around the world don't have access to banks or basic financial stuff, and Africa has a lot of those people. It's kind of ironic, right? Because Africa produces a ton of the world's gold.
Yeah.
But so many people there don't even have a bank account. It shows a real disconnect.
Wow. Yeah, it really highlights that. All that potential wealth coming from Africa, but people there aren't necessarily benefiting from it.
Exactly. And that's where Ubuntu comes in.
Okay.
It's this core idea in a lot of African cultures, and it's often summed up by, I am because we are.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Right. It's about recognizing that we're all connected, we're all in this together, and we should be working towards something better for everyone. And Ubuntu Tribe, that name comes directly from that philosophy.
So it's not just about like making a new financial product.
Yeah.
There's a bigger picture, a bigger purpose driving this.
Absolutely. Utribe, their main goal is to make financial inclusion a reality, and they're doing it using those Ubuntu principles.
Okay.
They want to give people the power to control their own finances, and they want to build a sense of community and shared humanity.
I love that. How do Gift and Utribe Wallet actually work to close that gap in financial inclusion in Africa?
Well, in a few ways. First, they make gold easier to get.
Right.
You can buy just tiny bits of gold for like a few cents, no more needing a ton of money to start.
That's a huge difference.
Right. And second, they're using the fact that a lot of people in emerging markets, especially Africa, have mobile phones.
That's true.
The Utribe wallet being on a phone means tons of people who don't have bank access can still use it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in some places, a phone is the only tech some people have.
Totally. So this wallet becomes like a safe place to keep money and a way to buy and sell things every day. All through their phone. It opens up a whole world of possibilities.
It really does.
Yeah.
I remember reading something about Utribe being very careful about where their gold comes from and actually giving back to the mining communities.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Ethical sourcing is really important to them. They support using methods that don't hurt the environment, like mining without mercury.
Okay.
And they work directly with those artisanal miners to make sure they're treated fairly. And they even reinvest some of the fees from using Gifty, like 10%, back into projects that help those mining communities.
That's amazing.
And the communities themselves get to choose which projects get that money.
Oh, wow. How do they do that?
Through something called a DAO, that's a decentralized autonomous organization. It's like a group that makes decisions together, but it's all organized and run using the blockchain. It gives those communities a real say in how things are done.
So it's like a full circle thing, making sure everyone benefits.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just taking resources. It's about creating value for everyone involved.
So to sum it up, we've looked at how Gift is gold but digital, how it's easier to use and more secure because of that blockchain tech. And for you, the learner, this shows how we can use tech and good ideas, like Ubuntu, to tackle big problems like financial exclusion.
Exactly. It's super cool how blockchain, with that proof of reserve thing, creates trust in the system, which is super important when you're trying to help people who've been left out of traditional finance.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see how something like this, built on this idea of togetherness, can change how we think about money and who gets to participate. So for you, the learner, think about this with the Ubuntu ideas and how powerful blockchain is. What other things could we do to make finance fairer and more accessible for everyone?
Yeah.
It's a question worth thinking about. And you can definitely explore more about this stuff by reading the Ubuntu Tribe white paper and looking into all these tokenized assets. It's a whole new world out there.
Definitely a fascinating world.
Thanks for joining us today. It was a great deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep learning.
Happy learning.